what makes... Okay. Hey, this is Lorena, and I wanted to do a video for you on a work day, but at the same time, I wanted to do a catch-up thing. I know I haven't been filming or posting videos for a little bit. I've just been extremely busy. It's kind of like a juggling thing, because either I work for YouTube or I work for myself. You know, just been busy, and I'm trying to catch up with my clients. I want to do my clients good. But there's this beautiful quilt that I did for one of my clients. She's also a subscriber. So hey, this is your quilt. I'm going to show your quilt off. To give some interest here is the design is a little bit more complicated to put on a quilt, and so that's what we're going to talk about today. So come on with me, because after I finished quilting it, it was delicious. I mean, this quilt came up delicious. So let's go. Okay, what makes this design harder to put on is that it has hills and valleys, and when you're putting on this design, you have to make sure that on the hill the space is the same as it is in the valley. And my long arm program does very well at knowing how to place it, but when you roll the quilt, sometimes it's not accurate. So I have to go back on every row and measure every single area to make sure that it's spaced the same. And what makes it difficult is just making sure that it's center and that it aligns the same. But every row can be complicated. Yeah, I guess so. Look how beautiful. Row 1 is pretty easy to quilt. You just kind of let the machine do its thing. And after row 1 is when it gets a little bit more complicated, because what is on the computer has to be translated onto the quilt itself. And one of the things I did is I measured from the computer to the quilt 2 inches apart. And if I had an accurate number, you know that it's 2 inches apart on the valley and it's 2 inches apart on the hill. You have to just constantly be measuring as you add the next row, because you want to make sure that the distance between each row is consistent, because you can see if it's not. Measured the distance between here to here, 2 inches. Here's the center. There's the center right there. See that? Now you measure here in the center. Center. Here. Two inches from there, and it should hit center to here. I measured 2 inches from the quilt, and then I looked on the computer to see where it was, and then I kept measuring on the valleys and on the hills 2 inches and going back and forth and checking it on the machine. It's really focusing on where the design is placed on the quilt, and you want to make sure that it's consistent throughout the quilt so it doesn't look like way spaced out on the next row or too narrow on the next row. So this is where it makes this design very complicated. Row 4. Woohoo, woohoo, woohoo. Yes. Come on. Come on. Now, I'm not going to show you every row that I did it to, but I did it to every row, okay? Measuring every time. The last row, what's different about this row is once you have the placement on the last row, you're gonna see that you're gonna have voids on the bottom of the fabric because you're also gonna have voids on the top. And this is where you're going to go ahead and add the design again, but then you're gonna trim it from your computer. And so you're gonna trim half of the design. And in one area, it was a little bit close and I had to unstitch it and go back and put it on. I don't know if I was fatigued, tired, or not measuring right, but it happens. And so you want to fill in all those empty spaces because you don't want those open unquilted spaces, especially with a design like this. So I ended up doing the bottom row, but I also have clips of where I did this on the top row. Look how beautiful the quilting is. So as I went along, I'm having to measure and then now I have this void here. There was voids on the bottom down there, but I went ahead and I added another set of designs. It did look like the top, which, God, this is so pretty. The measuring was a lot, which here's my design. So I have the measurement there, but then I'm going over here. Do you see how this is the bottom? I'm gonna trim all this off. So let's measure, right? That means this bottom dip is where it needs to start. And so now I am trimmed on all 3 areas. So now I'm gonna quilt this right here. So when you're buying designs from Urban Elements or Anne Bright, I think even DreamWorks or IntelliQuilter, because those are all the places you could get digital designs. Be mindful when you have designs that go in a triangular design, because this is something you're going to have to really work at, and it takes a lot of time. And so if you don't know how to work it, the space in between designs kind of either will be too short or too long, and so you're gonna have to be doing a lot of measuring to make sure that as you put the new row, the designs are consistent from row to row. But you know what? She came out delicious. She took a little bit longer to quilt, but man, these quilts, when you get these kind of designs, they're usually very beautiful. They're very detailed kind of designs, and they take a lot of time to quilt. It's not an easy panto to just put on and these take time, okay? So be mindful of that. Just know when they pick that design, you're gonna be working in probably twice the amount of time to quilt it than normal. And that's because you're working on placement and making sure you're doing it accurately. So yeah, it's just been, it's a lot, but the quilt came out for a very beautiful, elegant heart piece quilt. This quilting design just came out delicious. Like, oh my God, it's delicious. Seriously, it's just delicious, and my client loves it. Yeah, quilting can make a quilt look like a treasure. So yes, that was my work day. I hope you appreciate it.